Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Today we are rolling through our 2022 NFL Draft prospects, cranking out another positional rankings for the linebackers. We did our first tier of linebackers, including Nakobe Dean, Devin Lloyd, Brandon Smith, Christian Harrison, our guy Channing Tindall. We're moving on to our next top 5 prospects. Kicking us right off, Dill, Brian Asamoah. He's your guy. He's both your guys. I'm a little outnumbered here. What do you guys see in this guy's film that just excites you? Because I, quite frankly, don't see it.
So what of course, what obviously jumps out is he is not a take-on linebacker. Like, he's probably not who you want filling a hole against a fullback or a pulling guard. But what he lacks in like the take-on block skills, I think he makes up for by being. I think he looks instinctual and he's athletic enough to beat blockers to the spot. So he kind of covers up for his lack of physicality by demonstrating a superior level of athleticism and arguably instinct. So I think, like, yes, you would prefer maybe him put on like 10 or 5 to 10 pounds and be a little bit more stout. But I think you see the bones of the game that can really work because he goes sideline to sideline. And again, I think what you saw was great production getting to the ball and getting to the ball fast.
Rock, what do you have to add on? Because he also was your sixth highest, your next highest recruit or prospect here.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with Dill here through and through. I think that, 6'1", 229, he plays like it. He doesn't play mentally like that size, but physically he will get swallowed up by blocks. He's aggressive. He's downhill. I think he has to be the initiator of contact or else he's going to get swallowed again by bigger linemen, especially in the NFL. It's just going to get harder for him. But he's a great in coverage, and he shoots through gaps really quickly to beat the running back to like the line of scrimmage. And in today's world in the NFL, he's kind of like what you start to want to see out of your linebacker, less than like a Leo Chenal, who we'll talk about later on.
Yeah, the hate for Leo Chenal is just totally unfair and unwarranted.
Palpable.
We'll get a little teaser for the end of the episode. My take on Brian Asamoah is it was kind of a tale of two stories. I watched this film. For one, I watched him right after I watched Leo Chenal. So, like, inherently, any linebacker is going to look soft after you watch a little Leo Chenal. That being said, I watched him against Nebraska first, and it was ugly. I didn't see that downhill play that you guys were talking about. That being said, and quite frankly, I saw him just getting dominated. Could not stack blocks, couldn't work through blocks. And I was like, this guy just really struggles with that. And then you go to the Baylor game and he was phenomenal. And then that's where I see some of what you guys talked about, where he's firing downhill, beating blockers to the point of attack and making tackle for a loss or a tackle at the line of scrimmage. There was a little bit more downhill violence out of Brian Asamoah as opposed to that Nebraska game. Also, he might have just been hurt in the Nebraska game because he was also like not playing as much as you'd like to see out of your star middle linebacker.
Someone was definitely up.
33-inch arms, which is intriguing for a 6'1" guy. So that's long. He was good in coverage. I thought he was very good in coverage. I remember him picking up a tight end on a crosser against Baylor after play action. It was an impressive play. So I guess maybe I'm a little too low on him just because that first game I watched was against Nebraska, and it was easily the worst game of film I saw on him. That being said, I just worry about what Rock said, him getting swallowed up by more physical linemen at the second level. If he can fix that up or just kind of beat blockers to the spot, like Dill said, I think he can be a very good linebacker in the league. And agree, very modern-day linebacker. Quay Walker's our next prospect. We had Channing Tindall, his teammate, and really like the 1A, 2A, they played kind of rotated in and out together. Quay Walker comes in at number 7 for us. Dill, this was your favorite prospect of the group of guys we're covering today. What do you see out of his game that you like so much?
I think of the group we're covering right now, I think you could argue he's the most complete. I think it'd be him and Mumma, who I'd really say like, okay, these two guys are fairly well-rounded. I think what you got with Quay Walker is he played in a obviously much more premier football than Mumma.
Yep.
I think what really stood out, like, yeah, he was solid in the run game. I think you saw it against Kentucky. He was making plays. He's physical on blocks. But what like kind of shot him up for me to I personally think he's right around where Tyndall should be, or is he can cover. He was covering Slade Bolden, John Mechie, and he was doing a pretty good job. Like he was able to get physical with them at the top of their routes. And I mean, granted, they were shorter routes, so that worked out okay, but he was able to kind of be fairly sticky and be physical with them and kind of made it work. He wasn't giving up the passes. So that's what's got him up for me. I think he's got good pass coverage skills for the size he is. And I think he's a really good athlete. So I think what stands out is just well-rounded. That's kind of how I describe his game.
I think that's a fair description of him. Rock, what did you see out of Quay Walker? I forget where he ranked out of these 5 for you. What did you see and where did he rank for you?
I think he's 2nd or 3rd behind Mumma.
So, yeah, that is what it was.
Yeah. But to me, I think he looked good in man coverage, but in zone, he kind of looked lost in space. Not sure where to go. And you'd see a lot of passes completed against him in zone where he was right by the ball. He just couldn't make a break on it. So I don't know if that was just a mental processing thing or just short area quickness. But I think he's a sure tackler. I think in man coverage, he's really good. He can kind of run with anybody with a 6'4" frame. I think as a blitzer, that's where he like is the best at. Just up the middle on the edge. He looks pretty comfortable doing that. But I think if they don't ask him to do too much in zone coverage in the NFL, I think he'll be okay. But I just didn't love what I saw in that front.
And that's a little bit more of a trait that you can hopefully teach. Like that's not like a physical ability to cover in man coverage. Like you might just be physically limited where you just don't have the traits to do it. Maybe more zone coverage is like working on that field, working on that processing, like you talked about. He might, in his 6'4", like the short area quickness is never going to be elite. And it's just a big frame to get moving quickly. That being said, I kind of agree with what Dill said. I saw a lot of similar things. I think he might have better film than Channing Tindall when you're comparing these two prospects. He's a more mature player. He's had more snaps. He's played more. I think he's a little bit more instinctual. That being said, the flashes that Channing Tindall showed and just the sideline-to-sideline speed he showed, I think moves him up for me. That being said, Quay Walker is not far behind. I had him as my favorite prospect we have to talk about today, the 6'4", 240 frame. He does a phenomenal job stacking blocks, making tackles. I think he's also very good sideline-to-sideline too for that size. And you're going to get a solid linebacker here. I really do. I really like him. And another guy that I really like, he just hasn't really shown it at the highest level, is Chad Mumma. Rock, I think he was your second favorite prospect we're going to talk about today. I think they're very similar players. Like they're big, they're fast, and they're good tacklers. Like that's a great combination for a linebacker. Obviously, the concerns you have is like, are you doing it against the best competition? Being a good linebacker and having good linebacker film in the SEC and win a national championship is a lot different than going. I think Wyoming went like 6-6 in the Mountain West. Kind of two different sports at that point. But Chad Mumma's film was incredible. I think he was like 3rd in the country in tackles all over the field. That Boise State game was just incredible. I think he had like 20 tackles there. So super impressive prospect. But I'm going to kick it to you first, Rox. I think he's your favorite out of the 3 of us. What do you like in this kid's game?
Well, he's a converted safety, and you kind of see that.
Love that.
He bulked up, and yeah, you just see it. Really comfortable in both man and zone coverage. I think he trusts his eyes and his speed to make plays really anywhere on the field. And in terms of the modern style linebacker, like he's it to a T. So I think that's going to boost him up the draft boards for a lot of teams. The only thing I didn't love was him taking on blocks and like squeezing back to the ball. He would take wide angles and he couldn't really fight back to it if a lineman kind of stayed on him. So again, I mean, you're gonna have that with a smaller, kind of speedier linebacker, but he makes up for it in his athleticism and his aggressiveness and his sideline to sideline speed. So I liked him a lot.
Yeah,
I think what stands out is man coverage skills to me too. Like you saw him running with running backs out of the backfield, and not like just running and chasing, but he'd get his eyes back and make play. So I think that's kind of what stands out, and that you need to. I just think that's like an unacceptable trait at this point to not be able to do.
Oh yeah.
So I think he has a chance to be really good. the one thing I'd push a little back on is there were times in zone coverage, especially in the Boise State game, where he just didn't seem like he had the greatest feel. Like he'd kind of vacate his zone for run after guys and then the clear out and guys coming in and out behind him. But again, I think that's much more correctable because you do see the athleticism and the ability to make plays on the ball. So I think that's like I think he's more well-rounded than him and Quay. Again, I'll say it. I think they're the two who really can do it all.
Guys. Oh yeah, I agree.
I think that part of that kind of was Wyoming asking him to do a lot. I mean, he was covering a lot of guys' asses on the second level.
Yeah.
So I guess when he goes to the NFL and he knows where he needs to be because the guy behind him won't fuck up, I think that's just the next step for him. So I think
that's fair. That is like another thing when you're playing those small schools and
Superman ball.
It's just different. Yeah.
And the impressive thing about him is like whenever you watch the film on him, he's the best player on the field. Like every time on that defense. You saw a similar prospect, Logan Wilson, come on. He's starting in the Super Bowl next Sunday for the Bengals. So Wyoming, LDU, you never know. That being said, he's another Senior Bowl guy. We're kind of touching on some of the guys that we want to see thrive and succeed in the Senior Bowl. From what I've heard, he's had a good couple practices so far. I haven't gotten to see the film in yet myself, but a guy that I think is shooting. I see him as a top 5 linebacker on some people's draft boards. So an exciting prospect. Damone Clark stinks. I don't know. Don't like him. Don't like him. I'd have him last if you guys didn't hate on Leo Chenal so much. Does anybody who wants to start with Damone Clark? Does anyone want to defend this guy? Besides that, he has like a decent linebacker frame.
I'm not defending him. Still.
Oh, he's as good as anybody in man coverage in this draft. That's obvious. Yeah, there's concerns like he doesn't seem like he has any interest playing the run. That's the thing. Yeah, of course, a massive problem. Like, and it's not just he is a little taller, a little thinner, it seems, but you did lack even like the instincts, the desire to do it, the physicality, so that's concerning. But again, it's hard to. I thought the same thing. Whoever the Cowboys just picked, I thought kind of similar things about him. So
Jabril Cox.
Yeah,
exactly. So I was blanking the name, but I thought similar games, like two guys who showed elite man coverage skills at the linebacker spots. So I don't know. You probably deal with the run game somehow, I think.
Rock, what do you have to say to that? I'm interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because last year when I was watching Jabril Cox, he was number 19, and then Damone Clark was number 18.
They looked the same.
I couldn't tell the difference because they played the same way. They were just both scared to hit, both were great in coverage, and they looked the same. So just like it was really frustrating. And I hope that like you saw the physical traits from Damone last year in his film. You just hope that he would get the physicality part down and kind of be more like willing to hit. And then you watch him this year, and it's the same kind of deal. Yes, he had a ton more tackles, but he was not the first person to the ball. He never wanted to really initiate contact. Great in coverage, like Dill said, but I don't know if I want to touch somebody that doesn't want to play the line or half the linebacker position, if not 65% of it.
So that's like the Tremaine Edmonds effect in my opinion. Like Tremaine Edmonds has a lot of tackles, and like the stat sheet says, oh my God, this guy might be a good linebacker. Just doesn't play downhill. I mean, Damone Clark has no interest playing downhill and filling gaps. And yeah, you're making tackles, but they're like 5-6 yards down the field, and you're kind of getting like dragging the guy down with you. Right. And that was like my biggest thing I saw at Damone Clark, because it's just like almost a mentality thing. I don't know if he just wasn't seeing the game that quickly, or it's just like I just don't want to put my head in there and bang bodies. And so that's obviously extremely concerning. Dill, you noted the man coverage, 6'3", 245. He's got a phenomenal frame. All these guys really do, besides Brian Assimo, who's a little bit shorter and smaller. But yeah, Damone Clark just didn't play downhill, and that's a problem.
And it's not even like the skills weren't there, but it seemed like the mentality.
It was it was just a little soft. I
don't know how you coach mentality, but I probably can.
You want to get into a guy you don't have to coach any sort of mentality. Freaking Leo Chenal from Wisconsin.
Playing nose guard.
This dude is an absolute jackhammer. I mean, like a human sledgehammer. I heard, this is what I heard when I was doing some reading on him before I got into his film, is that he's going to put up 40 plus on the bench, and I believe it.
Yeah.
I'm sure this dude's a weight room warrior. I mean, I'll lead him off with him. I had him as my second favorite linebacker in this group. However, both of them had him dead last, so we had to go dead last. I guess we could put him behind Damone Clark.
You can average it out.
Yeah, we'll average it out. We'll put him over Damone Clark after this. But here's what I saw about Leo Chenal. And this is especially maybe a little bit of a frustration of a Tremaine Edmonds, a Buffalo Bills fan, watching Tremaine Edmonds kind of play a little not downhill as you'd like. You will not have a problem with this dude not playing downhill, but it's almost too downhill for me. Where it's like he doesn't have the patience to like pick through the traffic, take on a block, and make a play. It's like, I'm just going to get downhill and run into the offensive line as hard as I can and see if I can blow up the play. So as a result, you saw 18.5 tackles for loss, over 100 tackles on the season. I think it was 8.5 sacks. So the dude produced a lot. But like, there's sometimes where it's like, are you even looking for the football? Or are you just trying to go hit somebody? So that was a problem I saw. I don't think he's as bad sideline to sideline or in zone coverage as people say. Yeah, it's never going to be, if you're 6'2", 260, like it's not going to be your forte. You're definitely more of like inside the tackle box linebacker, which I think he's like the best prospect in the country if it's like playing inside the tackle box. If this was 15 years ago, he'd be a great linebacker. But I don't think it's as bad or as much of a liability. On other podcasts, they even say, oh, you're going to have to protect him in the pass game. Like, I don't think it's that bad. I watched this.
That seems like borderline, like you just look at the measurables and who.
Yeah, it seems like a lazy take. Yeah, it's like a 6'2", 260-pound Wisconsin linebacker. Like, it's probably a horrible athlete. But, like, he's not a great athlete.
I think that about Wisconsin linebackers, but it's like.
But he's not like that. I would be surprised if he ran like that super slow of a 40. His film, the game speed isn't like horrible. So that's my take on him. I really like this prospect. He's going to be higher on my big board than pretty much anybody. I think he's like a very tough football player. He's going to excel at like a Bill Belichick New England Patriot defense. I think he's going to be really good at in certain spots. And not so good
to his defense, he does play the zone pretty good.
Yeah,
like,
I thought so
too.
He
actually looks like comfortable. He doesn't look like he's out of place or anything. I don't think Wisconsin was asking him to do much man coverage. So
no, none. I don't think I saw a single rep of him in man coverage. It was like
I saw one and it was not pretty.
What game was it? I remember.
What game was it? Hold on.
And just while Rock's looking that up, my problem is I don't think he's good enough in the box to be like justify some of the other issues you're probably gonna have.
What did you see in the box? Because it was like, was it the same thing I was talking about, where it's just like,
he's not getting to he's just running into guys. He's not really shedding blocks as much as he's jacking guys up. Like he's not shedding the block, and he missed tackles. Frankly,
there were a few more missed tackles.
He doesn't break down enough and set his feet and make tackles. He was missing. And again, I think if you're going to be him, you need to be like perfect. And I think he was doing a lot of stats sheet stuffing against Northwestern, Iowa, these teams that have brutal offenses. And
that's
it's not hard. Point. It's not hard to wrap it up in the Big Ten West or whatever it is.
Because
like there are bad offenses out there.
Two of the games I watched of him, Michigan and Notre Dame, were like, I wasn't particularly impressed. And I don't even know if he had over 10 tackles in those two games combined. And I was like, where are this kid's 120 tackles coming from? I think I saw one TFL, 0 sacks. And then you have 16 and a half other TFLs, 8 sacks, and like another 80 tackles in your other 10 games.
I don't know.
Because it just wasn't there. It wasn't like great film. That being said, you're facing two really good running backs, two of the better teams you'll play all year. So there must have been some sort of stack padding. Did you find the game, or if you don't have it, it's fine.
I think it's the Notre Dame game because it was like one of the last things I wrote down, and it was the last game I watched. I think it's not even that
against Meyer.
Michael Meyer.
Yeah,
Meyer would expose him.
I mean, like even if you just project him, he doesn't have like short area quickness. Like if you put him on an island versus a running back coming out of the backfield and say, all right, he's going left or right, I don't trust him to choose which way or be able to run with him. And I think that in the NFL more than in college, they expose that.
Yeah.
I think they'll go after him for that. In college, you don't really see that. It's a different kind of football.
Certainly not in the Big Ten West.
Right. Right.
3 yards in a cloud of dust football out there.
I think that is why you saw the stat sheet kind of exploded for him. I was impressed with the Arizona State game too. I was surprised he played in the bowl game and he was waffling on when did it come out, but I mean, you had to come out after the year he had production wise. Maybe it's just a little biased because I do like those kind of players who are like the workout warrior.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it is a little corny. I agree. But like, I like how he played. Like, I don't know. It's like this is the kind of guy I like. He's physical. He's aggressive.
So maybe you get physical and make some tackles against good teams.
Yeah, that might be a problem. But I don't know. I'd rather take a Chenal than a Damone Clark. Like, I don't know.
25 years ago. Yeah.
25 years ago.
All right, well, that's a review on the next set of linebackers. I think this linebacker class is like really, really good. We got to switch this Brandon Smith and Christian Harris, by the way, because I definitely have Christian Harris over Brandon Smith.
I think you could argue Tyndall's better too.
I do too. But outside of those guys, I think Christian Harris has a very good chance of being a top 40 pick. And then I think it might dip a little bit. We talked about a bunch of guys who will be mid-day 2 rounds. So maybe end of second, early third. But there's a lot of good linebackers. There's a lot of potential starting linebackers in this class. Combine, obviously, for linebackers is important. You got to see how athletic they are. And that's a review on our next prospects of linebackers. We'll be back with I think we're getting to safeties and cornerbacks by the end of the weekend, and then adding to our big board as well. Once again, appreciate you guys rocking with us, and we'll be back with more prospect rankings and NFL draft content soon. Peace.